Hey, this is Troy Taylor with the Championship Football Coaches Clinic, sponsored by Rack Coach. And we got Coach Criz coming back for part 2. And we're going to be talking about 804 players in the NFL. Coach Criz, how are you doing tonight? Are you excited about this?
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm excited a lot, as we talked about a little bit in the pre-show. I'm thrilled to death. People told me I was crazy to do stuff on at 8 p.m. Before the Super Bowl. I don't know what the hell they think I do before Super Bowl Sunday. But I don't know about you, Troy, but almost out of deference to the coaches and all the scene around it, never having experienced that, but experiencing some big moments in my coaching career. I wasn't doing a lot of socializing when we met Eddie Robinson in the Meadowlands those 3 times, that kind of thing the night before. Even though I became, Coach Taylor said if I went out and had a good time before the game, it was a good omen. So he told me if my leg was broke up to my hip, he still wanted me to go out, even if he had to pay for it. Man. But no, it's exciting time for our game, and it's exciting time for 804. And I thought because of the eve of the Super Bowl, we talk about guys in the NFL. We talk about guys that have been in the NFL. But let's talk about 804 football players that have been in the Super Bowl. And this is kind of from the memory. I had what I thought. Well, I have 2 nice trivia questions. One that has nothing to do with the 804.
You're testing me?
I'm testing you.
All right, let's go.
And there's a method to my madness on this about what does a great coach look like as far as resume is concerned. How many NFL Hall of Fame players have led their team to the Super Bowl?
How many Hall of Fame players in the Pro Football Hall of Fame have won?
As coaches, they make the Hall of Fame, but as players, but as coaches, they've made it. They've taken their team to the Super Bowl.
To the Super Bowl?
To the Super Bowl.
So they don't have to have won. Do they have to have won it?
They don't have to win it.
They do?
They do not have to win it. There's only one that won it.
Okay. So I'm gonna work back.
Yep.
I mean, this ain't my answer because I know he didn't win a Super Bowl, but I know Art Shell is a Hall of Fame player.
Right.
He was a coach.
Oh, yeah.
So that jumps into my mind. Okay,
Yeah.
Who was a great player and a great coach? And it's a head coach.
It's a head coach. Let me tell you, the first one you'll never get because the first one was Raymond Barrett.
Yeah, he was the head coach of what Super Bowl did he win?
He did not win it. He was the head coach of the New England Patriots in the Super Bowl.
In 85.
Yes. And who were they defeated by?
The Bears. I know that, coach.
And who was the head coach?
Oh, Mike Ditka.
Who was a NFL Hall of Famer.
Oh, so he's a Hall of Fame tight end, and he's won the Super Bowl. Yeah, I would have never gotten that, coach.
Correct.
You got me.
The other guy to do it is Forrest Gregg. The old Packer offensive guard took the Bengals to at least one Super Bowl. I think Sam Weiss took them to the second one. But yeah, the Forrest Gregg got beat by the 49ers during the drive by Montana. Yep.
Wow, I didn't know that. I thought Sam Weiss was the coach for both of those.
Yeah, which speaks volumes for the fact that it is very difficult for NFL Hall of Famers to coach well. I'll tell you the worst, in my mind, the worst disaster in the history of that was a guy that I gave a chance to succeed. And his name went right out of my head. He's Singletary. Mike Singletary was a disaster with the 49ers.
Yeah.
And I think it has to do with a couple of things. Sam Weiss was a backup quarterback. He was an overachiever. Raymond Barrett was an overachiever. Ditka was just a badass. And, going to be, that's going to be his calling card. Obviously, Buddy Ryan, having Buddy Ryan as a defensive coordinator had something to do with it. And I'm not sure if Buddy's in the Hall of Fame yet or not, but he should be. It's tough for guys that don't have tremendous amounts of success at the head coaching level to get in there. But anyway, that's a fun one. But I thought I had myself the best one with 804 players in the Super Bowl, but I missed it by 1 year. I remembered it. My 11-year-old brain remembered it from the actual events.
Yeah, Willie Lanier.
Well, Willie Lanier was the first one, but by 1 year, he missed out to a guy named Bob Swikert.
Yeah,
he played quarterback at Midlothian, quarterback at Virginia Tech, and he was the backup quarterback for the Jets the year before, and was on, I believe, the taxi squad. I believe he got a ring for that but he was beat out for the third string quarterback. And if you remember who the second string quarterback was for the Jets, Babe Parilli. Babe Parilli, you know what they nicknamed him?
what?
Goldfinger.
Man.
Because the movie was popular.
Yeah.
He was the holder for Jim Turner, who was like 39 for 40 field goals that year, and kicked 3 then was the 9-point difference in the Super Bowl win over the Baltimore Colts. So anyway, so that's a lot of fun. I didn't do a lot of research, but I did get a hold of a nice NFL database. Can't tell you where I got it from, but there's some fun stuff. I will tell you this. Can you guess who the number one team in the state is as far as producing people in the NFL? And this
number one high school?
The number one high school. This would come with an asterisk.
I mean, I would have to say Hampton High.
Hampton's up there. Believe it or not, Holland Springs is within 1 of Hampton High School right now. Hampton has 13 and Holland Springs has 12. 3 active. But Fork Union and Hargrave are 1 and 2, and I believe Fork Union is the number one, considered a high school in the country.
Mm-hmm.
67 players.
Yeah,
I'm sure maybe 11 active right now. So that's pretty cool in our own backyard.
Oh yeah, we kind of forget about them sometimes, and the job that Coach Prunty did at Hargrave, and then Coach John Schumann, who heck man, he should be in some Hall of Fame.
I think he's in the VMI Hall of Fame, to be honest with you. But I'll tell you from a perspective of an HBCU coach and a Division II coach, and then later on 1AA coach, I can tell you one of Schumann's great qualities. He didn't big time anybody. He was interested in his kids going to the next level as any high school coach would be. But it went beyond that. For instance, there was a kid at UVA that went to UVA's first 2 years and transferred to Hampton. He insisted to the kid that he have a conversation with me and didn't say anything else. He said, look, I just told Chuck Preston to sit down with you. And something in the comments, something about his demeanor, and it wasn't all good. I told him, I wished him luck, and I said, I got a feeling I haven't seen the last of you. Then he transferred 2 years later to Hampton. So, it's fun, but that's Schumann to me. And it was a great break in my career when I was transitioning from coming out of coaching, and I started to do ham and egg stuff with Gary Hess's organization. Because everybody thinks we work with Gary. I worked with Gary from the beginning, and I did technically because we did a scoreboard show and things like that. But Gary and I got to know each other because he took me to UVA and Virginia Tech to chart the plays while he was going live on the air back in the days when they didn't do everything so digitally as they do today. and we just kind of hit it off and got the chemistry and somebody asked me the other day at the All Metro banquet, what makes it work between us? And you probably have a couple of answers too. But the best thing I say is, first of all, we are having as good a time as it sounds like we are.
Oh yeah.
And the other thing is, if you listen long enough, you'll learn something.
I love to listen to a football game on the radio. From left to right to left on your dial, and
I still haven't got used to doing that.
Yeah, I mean, you can just visualize it, man, and I love to listen to football game. And even my dad growing up, my dad would bring a radio, so he could listen to the radio and watch the game.
Oh no! Listen, when I first got in it, 20 years ago, about 20 years ago, I was doing games in the booth, either for WRNL, but you had to watch to see how many earpieces you saw. It's not like today where everybody's got earpieces, but you got to do it because you just couldn't make stuff up. If there are people in the stands, I've had people turn around at Bird. Hell, you can pick up people at Bird.
They can. It's almost like they can like look right in the booth, And then there was that day of infamy, Coach, when 117 or whatever it was, when there was an obscenity broadcast throughout Central Virginia.
Oh yeah.
And the Monica and Bird game from my first year. It's 10-7 will live in infamy. That's what Lane Casadani tweeted out.
Yeah. The best one that I was ever company for was, and I was actually part of the interview because I was coaching the indoor football team, the Richmond Speed, and in 2001 we made a great title run, and we had the star receiver on the air after the game. He played at Kansas State, and we were talking about how many times we had a third down conversion called back by a penalty, and we just started. And I said, what was it like in the huddle? And he said, Coach, we just didn't give a F.
Yeah.
It was 1 o'clock Richmond time because it was an overtime game and things like that. Hey, we've got I'm not sure if he's asking me or he's asking you, but we got
this is Jim Tim, Coach.
Yeah.
Jim Tim is from East Stroudsburg University. He lives in Rochester, New York, and he's asking you, what is your personal coaching philosophy? Jim Tim is dedicated to the Championship Football Coaches Clinic. He watches every podcast, Coach, we put out there. He even came on and did trivia. What is your personal coaching philosophy, greatest lessons and tendencies?
Well, the greatest tendencies. All right.
Good teams have tendencies. That's Coach Mountjoy.
Is that what that is?
I don't. That's
when you talk about tendencies. I brought up, and I haven't been able to disprove it. And it even happened to me in arena football where you think you throw the ball every down, and that kills the offensive lineman. Joe Taylor told me very early at Virginia Union, Hampton University, later at Florida A&M, you throw the ball so you can run it when you want to.
Here you go. What's your biggest weakness, and how over the years have you learned to fix it?
I ain't fixed the damn weakness, Jim.
Yeah, that's why we're on here, Jim Tim.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. I will tell you, having a lot of just figuring out where you are, where you fall short, and things like that. It was funny. One thing people need to realize that if the football somehow magically didn't demand practice, I'd still be coaching. I love what we're talking about, how to go about your business. I love X's and O's. I love evaluating personnel. I love all those things. I was a great teacher in the classroom. I was not great on the field. And it was just a personal weakness. And I'm sure if any of my ex-players saw that, they probably would never have thought that. because I sure as hell, every time I showed up, I was the authority, and the attention was in the details. But I had a great mentor, but I am probably exhibit A for, if you can recruit, they're going to keep you on the staff.
Man, recruiting is the lifeblood. And, Chris Beatty, who came on, Coach, and talked for 2 hours, he said that Joe Taylor was, other than his high school coach,
right?
I think it was one of the Bendorfs, Pete Bendorf, that Joe Taylor was his biggest mentor. And he was only with him 1 year at Hampton University.
Yeah. Somebody told me if Chris Beatty and I were locked in a room, we'd never get out of the room.
Man, I mean.
And I don't put myself in his category, but because of near misses and things like that, and believe me, when the internet didn't take it over and we were actually doing stuff on the radio about recruiting, I always found out where Chris Beatty was.
Man.
He could read.
He says you weren't expecting that question, were you? He's been
no.
Tim, I'm going to tell you the answer to that question. Coach Holt, Bill Holt told me that I'm a workaholic. That's the best answer to that I'm a workaholic and I care too much. See, they're actually turning around a weakness, saying that you work too hard.
Oh yeah. Of all the non-funny things that Joe Taylor has told me in my life, the one I liked the best was don't confuse activity for achievement. Be self-evaluating, figure out, because Joe's favorite thing, and John O'Connor has kept us alive in the 804, that you can't get caught smelling yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Taylor used to say when you thought
rat poison.
Rat poison. Exactly.
Yeah, that good stuff. What's your favorite system you've run? You like to throw the ball, don't you, Coach?
I do. And I am the only guy retired from outdoor football for how many years is it now? It's 23. That still has a playbook. If everybody dies tomorrow, and I have my choice of a high school job, I already know what we're gonna run.
Yeah. He said, I make people look at the small things and make them better people. Tim, that's why we love you. And even though you're from the North, we still accept you.
Yeah.
804 football. 804 football, Coach. Coach, do we go back to Bill Dudley? But Bill Dudley's out from Southwest Virginia, isn't he? He's not from Charlottesville.
No. You can't go for the NFL guys. I don't think you go for Dudley because that was the era where they played professional football and they came back and they were postmen.
Yeah.
So
how far does it start with Willie Lanier, Coach?
Well, modern does, because you're talking about the Super Bowl III with the Jets, and then Super Bowl IV with the Chiefs. With that big upset. I think the modern era is where the leagues will come together and things like that. By the way, Tim, one more thing. The will to succeed, to prepare, must be greater than the will to succeed. Because everybody that comes into your program will want to win.
Yes.
Will they prepare? Any swinging deck wants to win.
Yeah. What's important now? Focus on the process. It's a bunch of different ways to say it, but it's all the same.
All right. Well, I recognize you were trying to get this thing back online, but Tim has thrown me for a line. He may damn well be my best friend on the internet at this point.
Hey, Tim, whenever you want to talk ball, you look up Coach Criz.
Yeah.
He is a football junkie. He loves it.
I do. I know you're trying to put it back on track, and Willie Lanier was obviously the first Richmond player to play in the Super Bowl. Bob Swikert may have gotten the ring, but Willie Lanier played and pretty much gave a Hall of Fame performance. You know, that was an X and O masterpiece. You realize that, right? That what Hank, well, you know, I'm older than you, so I remember.
Yeah, matriculate the ball.
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
it's two of the greats.
Let me tell you what he did. He went to an odd front and moved Buck Buchanan inside, because Buck Buchanan was 6'6", 285, and Mick Tingelhoff was 6'1", 230, and made him pay the price. Lanier, covered Lanier up. Curly Culp played what we'd call the 3 technique or whatever in there. Then they had, I can't think of the guy's name. And then Jerry Holmes was the defensive end, and he played a 9 technique. First time I'd seen a 9 technique. Of course, keep in mind, I was 15 years old. I didn't know what a damn 9 technique was. I don't think they started.
And everybody walked up there.
Yep, but and that was the big thing. And then Hess and I will always do, when a team starts getting rolling a little bit on offense, especially if they're running the ball or a short passing game, we'll talking about matriculating it down the field. And then I can't remember it's 36, 38 toss power.
36 power wham trap, toss power wham trap.
Or something like that, yeah. Anyway, but and when we're rooting for our teams in the state playoffs, I do a pretty good Hank Stram impersonation. Okay, boys, we got him now, boys.
Did you ever get to meet him, Coach?
I did not.
Did he wear a toupee?
If he did, he missed a good chance. He was the only NFL coach to dress like he was Secret Santa, because he wore the Kansas City red vest, and they always said he was dapper. He looked like a fat guy in a suit, you know. But he could coach. But then you got to look at he was lost, as was Ditka, when he ended up in New Orleans, because it took Sean Payton to exercise the demons in New Orleans.
And Drew Brees.
Yeah. Well,
yeah. Coach, if Drew Brees passes the physical in Miami and Saban gets Drew Brees, I mean, is Saban still coaching in the NFL?
Yeah, could be. I think he went where he could win perpetually. Obviously, it's a little bit more risky, a little bit more reward, because even in the old days, the big power teams could build consistency from year to year. Back in the old days, they could sign everybody they didn't want to play against too, because it was unlimited scholarships if you had enough money. So sometimes you made that consideration. All right, Troy, as usual, all great conversations that happen with Coach Criz, they get completely off center. But Willie Lanier is a great place to start from this. And it also underscores, I've jotted something down. I lied a little bit. But Maggie Walker has had 6 NFL players.
Wow.
And if you think it's interesting, and by the way, as late as the late 80s, the Carter guy that from defensive end that went to Florida State was
Ouija Carter.
Something. Now it's, let me see. Walter Carter, and he was at Tampa Bay for 1 year, defensive end. I also remember Tony Leonard, who played for the Lions and 49ers. I could not think of his name. Willie Lanier was actually the 4th player to make the NFL. The first one was in 1949. guy named Ben Willie, and Charles Robinson was 51, 54. And that's, by the way, reading that was where I came back and said they came back in bed and were postmen. So, the game has changed a lot in those days. Interesting enough that if you have 6 players in the history of your program in the state of Virginia, you are in the top 20 schools that have it. And so the Central Region guys that fit that category are Verona, Petersburg, Walker, Huguenot, Hermitage, and it skips for a while, and then you got Holland Springs. I know I did find a mistake in one of them, but it might be a technicality of not being on the active roster. Henrico has 3. The best one was James Rowe. He played for during the John Trott era, and but the guy, and there's a guy that played recently, I think maybe even for Coach Glasgow, that is still in the NFL, still active in the NFL, a linebacker. But Derek Glasper was a defensive back, went to UVA, and he was with the Steelers for several years. And I don't know if he was ever active or anything, but he was Lynn Swan's best friend. To give you an idea of the era, stuff like that. So it's funny how that happened. The reason I like to start with Willie Lanier is I spent 2.5 hours, maybe more if you've been at All Metro banquet recently. And when we came up with the list, I believe it was the top 30 players ever, high school players, and we picked him second. He had no problem with that because Barty Smith from Freeman was by far a better football player, more dominant football player.
Barty's a Pro Football Hall of Famer?
No, he's not a Hall of Famer. But Willie said Barty was an early bloomer. My better years were ahead of him. And he's right.
Oh, so you're saying the best player actually to play?
Yes, while he was a high school football player. Yeah. So, and he had no problem with that. Barty Smith would have been All Metro in baseball, track, and football, and would have probably gotten All Metro honorable mention in basketball. He was he stayed at home. Don't know why. I know Coach Ray Tate, he kind of blazed the trail for guys coming out of coach's ranks to work with it. Then was Coach Rinaldi. But I would say that Ray kind of was the biggest influence to me because I kind of did work and listened to the University of Richmond games back there. And I think Frank Soden, he actually started with Frank Soden, but certainly Bob Black for years and years and years. But Ray Tate, that was his shining star. He had a special relationship with Barty, and he stayed. And at the time, Richmond was a number one, was a Division I program. They were in the top 20. I've got to plug this computer in, Troy. It just won't take. It will just take a second.
That's okay, Coach.
The battery runs out as fast as mine does. But anyway, Barty went on to play in the college all-star game. Are you old enough to remember that?
No, sir. I only remember the Shrine Bowl and the Senior Bowl.
Oh, yeah, the East-West.
I was born in 78.
Yeah, you missed it. This was the 60s. But the college all-stars would play the defending champions. And they'd throw, and it was the Green Bay Packers. And he got drafted by the Green Bay Packers, but he played in that game and tore cartilage in his knee and slowed him down. Today it would cost him 3 weeks in practice.
Oh, yeah.
Then it cost him half a season. And he was never really the same yet. But I think he played like 5 or 6 years for the Packers. to give you an idea. And
Coach Jim Tim says he remembers that, but he's 40 and he did not know that Don Shula is the all-time winningest coach in pro football history.
Okay.
But he says he remembers that All-Star game.
Right.
And Jim Tim, you're 40.
Y'all got a special relationship. Shame on you, Troy. See? So, but you tell me I don't know if there's anything, if the Beckton kid can get over his injuries, and, Kayvon and Greg are both, they're always looking over their shoulder. And I've been proud of them the way they've been able to play, looking over their shoulder. The competition is tough. People forget. They assume that these guys are, making ham and egg money and stuff like that. Just look it up. Mm-hmm. They're both, these guys that are basically working their way to journeyman. Deutsch, of course, is very, very productive. It's a little bit harder to evaluate a guy like Kayvon.
All right, look, Coach Puka's on here now.
Yeah.
Puka's got his list here, which is pretty impressive.
I had this. You think he invented this? No, but thanks, Puka. Yeah, Ron Burton. Ron Burton was on a great early Rinaldi teams that was dominant. Ron Burton, Troy, because Ron is still.
Yeah, he's a coach. He coached Michigan State.
Yes. And Ron was at North Carolina when I was working in North Carolina camp. He tore his pec muscle, and he still managed to get on the Cowboys roster for a few years. Brian Washington, I coached in the 9th grade, first freshman ever to dress in the varsity locker room in Nebraska.
Wow.
Emmanuel McNeil's one of my favorites. He was with the Jets for a while. He had a real good career in Canada. Macho speaks for himself. Macho was one of the most exciting guys. Yeah, Jim, I'll take care of that. Macho was one of the most exciting football players I'd ever seen.
Yes.
And Puka, I don't thank you for. You have forgotten something, because I will tell you, the first one from Holland Springs was a guy named Waddy Harvey. Waddy Harvey was played at Holland Springs, played at Tech, and was on his way to a good career in Buffalo. And believe it or not, got a pimple on his knee. Talking about things that should be taken care of.
Yeah, we got staph.
He
got staph?
No, pimple. Had a pimple on his knee, and it got infected.
Yeah,
and he never really recovered from it. I'm trying to think of the rest of them. I think because the Springers have gotten 12, and so we've got not 8 there. I'll have to think about the rest of them, but and I'll pull it up a little bit later on. But yeah, the Springers are within 1 of Hampton to pull into 3rd place, and actually number 1 among the public high schools. So that's something that we dug up today.
I'd be willing to bet they're going to break that.
Oh yeah. There's some guys right now that look pretty good walking through the airport after seeing them at the All Metro banquet.
Mm-hmm.
Coming back, the way they've been able to retool on the offensive line is incredible. I mean, you can say everything you want to about the Springers, but the first thing I tell you is at the end of the day, or at some point in any game they win, they've established themselves between the tackles, and they do it with great players that don't go on to necessarily, break records at the college level. They're just great high school football players, and it means a lot when you get hat on hat, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, we couldn't run the ball on them.
So that's the great one. I'll tell you what. Let me check that list real quickly for the Springers. I was Ed Perry, who I recruited. Ed Perry was a great tight end. He played at Madison, learned to long snap, and had an 8-year career with the Dolphins at long snapper. Jim Davis was a defensive end. And Jim was played at Jacksonville, Hokie. Oddly enough, my first radio partner, he lived next door to Jim Davis, so we had access to Jim Davis while he was being recruited. Waddy Harvey, who I mentioned, and was a guy I did coach against, Greg Taylor. And Greg Taylor was with the Patriots. That will take care of it. Marcus Burley was the one that I wouldn't have remembered really well. I remember the name. I'm just surprised. He's been very productive. He's been on 3 different teams. And I've been impressed. A guy that I thought went a long way and kind of disappeared from the radar, but he's back in the business world. And I met him in the gaming industry. But Mark Parsons played at Monacan.
Mm-hmm.
And Mark was drafted he ended up going to Miami, Ohio, and ended up in the defensive backfield. And he was drafted by the Saints and traded to Houston. And so he had 2 or 3 years in the NFL.
How many's Monacan got?
You know what? And I would say that might be it. I'll check back during the break, but I think that might be it. Even though they've had a Kelly in their program.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I wanted to talk about Petersburg too. Let me get that one real quick.
Puka left a message here. He said, "Crazy, I forgot Ed Perry, Jim Davis, and my cousin Tony Booth."
Yeah, and as far as I think Tony might have fallen short of the NFL roster, but he definitely does, no question.
If you played a snap in a game, you're an NFL guy, right? I mean, if you're a practice squad and you don't play in a game, then you're not an official, right? I mean, as far as you're concerned, I respect anybody that's made it to that level of football.
Guy that made the guy that most recently that was active for Petersburg was Quentin Spain, who actually played for 3 NFL teams and got a better contract each time, but he was done after 6 years.
This year.
Yeah, this year. Yeah, 2021 was his last year. Jerome Mathis played for us at Hampton. I was gone by that time.
He was fast.
Mathis was put in a very untenable position. He was, as a kick returner, I believe he was a 2nd round or 1st round draft choice of the Houston Texans. You have to have fire flying out of your butt to merit a 1st round.
I mean, he's an Olympic. He's an Olympian. He's an elite fast guy.
Yep. One of my favorite guys was another player at athlete, Jarrell Smith, who hung around with the Cowboys for a couple of years. Again, played at Hampton, and Jarrell was known as Bill Parcells' guy. For some reason, Bill Parcells loved him, and he kept him close, and he kept giving him opportunities, and Jarrell was able to hang around for a couple of years. A guy that went to that program and had a similar path to the NFL as Darren Sharper as a defensive back at William & Mary was, I coached with him, and now I'm going to completely forget his name.
Darren Sharper was from Hermitage, right?
Yeah, Harry Sharp was from Hermitage, but Billy Parker, who is the recruiting coordinator for VMI now.
Yeah, he just went to William & Mary.
Yeah, and he was in Carolina's camp. Billy was a big-time free agent player in arena football in a big market in New York, and he is he's an entrepreneur, great educator family, But
I'm
yeah,
very impressed with Billy Parker. When I met him, he came through the
yeah,
school from VMI. He coached in the CFL. He coached William Stanback, who played at Union. He came from
yeah,
Central Florida. And Billy Parker is first class, coach.
yeah. And Verona has 6, but my man Alan Michael Cash, who I think plays. I joke.
My man Alan Michael Cash in your Apple Music library. You can ask me.
Wait a minute. Suri's talking to me. She likes Alan Michael Cash too. Alan Michael Cash played for us for the Richmond Raiders, and after week 4, he led the league in sacks from the nose tackle position. Nobody.
He's a bad chicken.
Never happened. That should never happen. But his guy at North Carolina State got the head coaching job at Montreal, and he was able to go up to Canada and win a Grey Cup, and just a great dude. I signed him over a beer at the Buffalo Wild Wings at the time in Chaco Slip, and he had just signed a contract to teach special education in the city, and that's what those indoor football guys do. But he was a special dude.
Yeah.
And
But Cash, he never played an NFL snap, did he? I mean, he went to CFL.
Sure, he was in a camp.
Oh yeah.
Like Jonathan Lewis made it onto an NFL roster. He's one of the Verona guys.
Did J. Lou played?
Huh?
He played for the Browns, didn't he? He played a snap.
Oh yeah, I think he was with Phoenix more than anything else. Now Arizona, obviously, more than anything else. His brother was in camp at least once.
And he's a Glenn Lee kid.
Yeah, Puka talks about Alan Michael Cash. Like I said, I've never seen a guy that. Well, I know. I'll tell you what Alan Michael Cash tells me. Alan Michael Cash is productivity in a lineman that's 3 inches taller and 30 pounds heavier. Now I know what I know what it's like to be around a Hall of Famer. Because I mean, his motor, Puka can chime in on that. His motor was unbelievable, and his ability to just shrug off what was going on around him was really good too. He never got, he played really intensely, but I'm not sure how many penalties he had in his career. But all I know is he started basically all 4 years, if I remember correctly. If not, who's going to say it's not?
He's good, man.
Yeah, he's very, very good, and very, very instrumental in Verona building that program. I'm trying to think who else we have missed out.
Got Tim from Verona. You got Tim Harris.
Yeah.
Tim Harris, the 49ers. All right, you got Brandon Miner, the Broncos.
Yeah, and he's not listed on the list. So again, it's that type of conversation. Tim Lewis for sure. Andre Branch was the one I always have a hard time remembering.
Andre Branch is the real big kid that went to Clemson, and he was a pass rusher for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Exactly.
And he signed a real big contract, his second contract.
He did.
I mean, I think his dad might have played in the NFL too for the Cowboys. I could be wrong. I don't know if his dad's from Richmond.
I don't know. The first two from Verona was a guy named Bob Smith.
Oh yeah,
backup quarterback, I believe, with the Steelers. I had never knew this until I did research. They sent it up. The coaching staff sent it over to me, and then Ken Willard, who I knew about, and Ken Willard was a longtime player. Played with John Brody, and it was good 49er teams. And stayed in town all his years, lived a low-profile life, did a bunch of commercials and stuff. His kids played locally, but they didn't play football. They played at Trinity before there was football at Trinity. But Ken Willard was kind of the standard bearer as far as that's concerned. Hermitage, nice contingent of players, top to bottom. And I'm having a hard time right now remembering the all-pro tackle that's
Duane Brown.
Yeah, Duane Brown.
They got 7.
Yeah, Josh Vaughn was a running back, and who actually really kind of pulled out 4 years of career. The Sharper brothers, Sean Barber. John Hilton was a legendary tight end. John, I'm not sure if John has passed away or not. I know he has suffered from the same thing that took Ray Easterly's life.
Yeah.
But John was, played with, he actually played with Green Bay, Pittsburgh, Minnesota, and Detroit, something I did not know. But Duane Brown is now the active one. They did give Curtis Grant a year credit on the roster too. So whatever that's established, that's pretty good. And it's interesting to me, the cluster of players that are around some of these guys too. They have a tendency to be in the same area, like the Sharpers and Barber. And I mentioned last week discovering that tackle at John Marshall, and Lamont told me he played with Sharper and Barber at. It's not Glen Allen.
Coach, we're forgetting some people from we're forgetting Canada, Maurice Canada.
Oh yeah, good.
From Brana. And
Good
Mike
people.
Robb, Coach. I don't think we mentioned Mike Robb.
Oh yeah, well, he's in a commercial to be seen later. Yeah.
Okay.
We overlooked that. Yeah, there's no question. Mike Robb. I've got the chance to tell him this, and I think he uses it sometimes when he talks about first impressions and all that kind of stuff. He was the first time I ever met him was we were doing a Thursday night show, and he had decided to go to Penn State, and he agreed to come on the air. And he took calls from Tech fans who were kind of second guessing his choice, but I think he kind of won them over. And I told my partner at the time, Bill McDonald, I said, I don't know what he's going to do, how he's going to do, if he's going to have to change position or whatever at Penn State. But I know one thing, he'll never wonder where his next meal's coming from, because he was smooth as silk and very engaging and a breath of fresh air. And that was, so I didn't worry about Mike Robb very much going forward. But that is an interesting case of a guy who teams look beyond what the typical skill set was for a guy coming out of college, and he certainly fit the bill as a special teams player and H-back and whatever else they needed to use him in.
Coach, I never knew that Monacan had a kicker. 1987.
All right, last name?
Last name, Tobin. I never knew that. Right here, Coach. His name is Brendan. B-R-E-N-D. Yeah, Toibin.
Yeah, and
I never knew that.
And I'm trying to think of the team he kicked for in college.
I have to Google it, Coach.
Kickers can get lost.
Yeah, our kicker's going to make the list.
Oh yeah,
you're a special teams guy, Coach. Our kickers people. Our kickers people, Coach.
All right, I heard you the first time.
There was no answer, Coach. It was a long pause there when I asked, were kickers people?
I was lucky enough. I had 3 kickers and 2 punters in that whole stretch. And all of them are successes at the next level. I'm thankful to say that. One of them was a football player that I turned into a punter, so I didn't count him. But it was, yeah, they are. And
They are.
They are, and I even had the best arena kicker I ever saw, with those 12-foot uprights in between, begged me to teach him how to tackle. So I did. But yeah, kickers are interesting, but I don't, I like them being more athletic, but I did have to slow down all my kickers as far as workouts are concerned.
Yeah.
Like I made up stuff for my first kicker at Virginia Union. I found out he had a bicycle. I changed where I took my dry cleaning, and he went and got my dry cleaning during practice.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 days a week, stuff like that. Just to just get him out of my hair. And and he made the Hall of Fame in Virginia Union just now, recently. Yeah. So, and deservedly so. So yeah, it's interesting. I feel like we're gonna hang up, and I'm gonna regret. I'm gonna regret not mentioning somebody in there. It's funny because Stu Brown listed baseball players and stuff like that, and left out. This is how hard this is. He left out Rick Langhorne, who won 21 games for the Oakland A's back when Billy Martin had 4 started pitchers that pitched 1,000 often. Yeah, Thomas Dale. That's a good one. That's a good one. Boogie Henderson, obviously Super Bowl winner with the Oxidine hung around for a while. I'm trying. Who's a good wide receiver?
Rudy. Yeah, Rudy Johnson.
Rudy Johnson, who went from a scout back coming up through the 8th grade. First time I saw him was playing as an 8th grader. Went from a scat back to a junior college somewhere in Kansas, and the next thing I know, he's 6'3", 280, and running a 4.5.
Wow.
But yeah, Thomas Dale, guys that
Ricky Hall. Was Ricky Hall?
Ricky Hall. I talked to Kevin Tucker Wednesday night at All Metro, and he was pretty sure he would qualify in that list. You know who he skipped? Skipped Patrick Henry. In the 94 Patrick Henry team. Forget about an era. Aaron Kenny, whose brother down, going to be the head coach at Mills Godwin. Aaron Kenny went on to play at for the Titans.
Yep.
I don't think he was on the team in '99 because I think he was at Florida for 5 years. But it's possible he was on the Titans team and was a runner-up at '99. But then you had Damian Woody.
Yep.
Want to shout out to Andre Curtis, who was a center and a middle linebacker.
He's a coach.
Every down at VMI, and has coached in the NFL since.
Mm-hmm.
Keith Short, I thought was probably the best. Was one of the best high school players on that team. Derek Hott went the Canadian route. Listen to this. Derek Hott, when he played for us in the Richmond Revolution, Derek Hott told me that they couldn't find another quarterback. They ran out of quarterbacks. So he ran the Wildcat, and they went 2-1 in the Canadian Football League, just snapping the ball directly to him.
Yeah.
So,
Coach, you got C.J. Rivas for Jacksonville from Thomas Dale, too.
And Kevin did mention him as well. CJ kind of got lost on the radar for a while. Was he the one? Is he one of the ones that ended up at the on that cable show with the?
Yes, sir. Last Chance U.
Yeah. That's not something I'd put on my resume, but
yeah,
if you got a good story and you walked away from it, a success, why not? Yeah, really good program there. I don't remember any early era guys. Ricky Hunley was a beast. His brother Lamont had a cup of coffee in the NFL as well.
Petersburg?
Huh?
Ricky Hunley at Petersburg?
Yes. And he was with the Broncos for a long time. And
Here's one coach you haven't mentioned from Petersburg that played for y'all at Hampton. That big old D lineman, Kendall Langford.
What year was he?
He was 08, coach. You were already out.
He was already gone.
Yeah, he was already gone. He was a big defensive end, man. 6'5", 280.
Yeah, he had a nice pipeline. And I started with Tyrone Mayer when Billy Jarvis was still there. In 92, 93, got the other two Mayer brothers. The family moved to Chester, got the other two brothers off Vic's staff. And that started a long line of kids we brought in from Thomas Dale. Darius Swinton, who's a special teams coach, will be probably getting a job here soon. He's set out this past year. Has had some pretty high profile special teams jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Good job with that. It's a fun time to think about stuff like that. I kind of was rooting for Bob Schweikert though, because that would have been a good little tribute. But it's great to see a guy like Willie Lanier. And let me tell you something, as a player during that era, and as a guy that was that Henrico team that won the region in '70, we were just, you talk about football junkies. It was obnoxious how much football we talked and all away from it. And to be able to talk to a couple of black teammates and say, how did he get out of town and we not know about him? And they just look at me like, you really need an answer to that? And it seems strange that I lived through that era, where there was still a lot of unofficial segregation. And
so north of the river, you got Jock Jones from Lee Davis,
right?
Josh Wells, who was a quarterback in high school and was offensive tackle. I think he's still in the league. And then he was
playing left tackle when he got injured in the next to last home game, regular season game.
And then you got who's from Deep Run?
Did
Exum make it?
Exum, yeah. Exum was with the Vikings.
Yeah, so I'm thinking, like, is there any more north of the river guys? Because south of the river still got some guys.
Oh yeah, you got
Just go down Route 10, Coach. Just start at Hopewell.
Yeah, Monsanto Pope.
Yeah,
I remember him, and of course, it's Taylor still active with Seattle, but they only have 4. I was a little surprised by that, and 2 of them were postmen in Petersburg after football season was over.
Yeah.
I would usually say UPS, but UPS trucks weren't around.
They didn't have that. Willie McCray and Bosch Pritchard. I don't remember either of those. But Hopewell had some great teams back in the 50s, Petersburg and Bird's got 4. If we're just going down Route 10, we already gone through Thomas Dale. Who do you know who the first guy is from Bird to make it? Because it was a long time, from 1978 until I'd say he came out and he went to Marshall.
Yeah. And I've talked to him. I met him after his playing career, though. Who is it?
Doug Chapman.
Okay.
Doug Chapman got drafted by the Vikings. And then after Doug, there was another tailback that went to UVA. And played fullback for Al Groh, and then he played some tailback.
Yeah, he's the guy that
he's one of the brothers, 3 of them.
Yeah,
Jason.
Yeah,
Snellings, and then Bird's got 2 guys now who, and Harris
Yeah.
is on the Eagles roster. And he's been in the league for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, maybe longer.
He got a big free agent contract when he was still.
And then you got Jalen Elliott, who I think he might have been active this year for the Raiders. He's played for the Lions. So
I was going to say, I knew he wasn't on the Lions. I looked for it because they actually had an Elliott in the defensive backfield for the Lions, but it was another good. It didn't look like him.
And then
Snellings is playing in state prison now.
What? No, that's Merle. That's Merle.
Okay, all right.
Merle. That's Merle Robertson.
All right. Sorry.
Merle, I don't think ever actually played in the game.
No, he didn't.
But the kid who Bird's got a chance of having another one is the linebacker at NC State, Coach Isaiah Moore.
Right.
And he got out of state. He went to NC State. I don't think Virginia or Virginia Tech offered him.
Yeah, he played in what's his face's shadow, and just turned out to be a little bit longer, I think, and got into a good system in North Carolina State and was very, very productive.
Yeah. So Meadowbrook, Coach, did you write down the Meadowbrook ones?
All right. So you got big ticket. No, he's not big ticket. That's
he's just like him, Coach. He's huge.
Moses.
Yep.
And then
this next guy I want to talk about because nobody knows who he is. And he never made all Metro. But this kid, his junior year, I was doing his highlight film. I couldn't find any tape of him hitting anybody. He had probably 5 interceptions, though. And then he ran track. And then at the end of his senior year, I asked Randy West, who was our line coach, where should I send some tape on this kid? He said, send one to Youngstown State. And because that's where another kid had gone from Meadowbrook, Lavelle Hawks, back in like 94 or 5. And then it was Brandon Ross, Coach, spelled Brandian. Brandon Ross got hooked up with the Green Bay Packers and then went out to Oakland. He basically, Charles Woodson took him under his wing, Coach, and he now is a scout for the Green Bay Packers.
Good.
So that's the guy. He was active from 2012 to 2015.
I'll tell you the program we slighted the worst based on who we left out.
Oh, Huguenot. Coach McPhee.
Yeah. Corey Holiday.
Yep.
Who Corey, played for Pittsburgh for a couple years, and he went straight there to an executive in the ACC conference office.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't know what he's doing now. Brian Steele, who was a second-round draft choice, probably a little bit of a reach. We had him in the Richmond Revolution. He had started in the corporate world by that time. He was something special. Renard Cox had only lasted 1 year with Jacksonville, but he was good. Same thing with Bruce Branch. Bruce Branch was about as advanced as any defensive back I'd ever seen at the high school level. David Terrell, who I had forgotten had like 12 receptions in Brady's last win, in the big win they had at the Orange Bowl. Or something.
Oh, yeah.
Bowl. I forgot about that. And Dedrick Epps, who lasted 3 years in the league at Miami. He went to Miami and then he played at Miami. So
that was a good deal there, man. That's a nice place.
Not having to move and all that. But
no state tax.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think we kind of covered it.
What about TJ, Coach? TJ.
All right.
These are old ones here, man. Carl Bland from 84 to 1990, a wide receiver. Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers. Lee Coughlin is back in the 40s, so they got 2. Manchester's got 1. Do you remember Manchester's?
It's the kid that was at Tom's. I asked Tom about him on Saturday. He's at Clemson. He's coaching at West Florida now.
Yeah, that's Cavell Connor. Played at Clemson.
Tom said he was going to text me his name because he didn't trust me. So
yeah, Cavell Connor. He played tailback at Manchester. Prince George has got 1. Back in 1972 to 1982, Coach. He played 10 years in the league. Larry Brooks.
Yeah.
D tackle.
As coach, he played at Virginia State and played for the Rams.
Wow.
Has coached a lot too.
Looking at this list, there's St. Christopher's got one, Coach.
Oh yeah, he was a fullback. Robert Pratt.
Yeah, he was listed as a guard, 1974 to 1985.
Yeah, he was on the Colts team that beat the Cowboys in the Super Bowl that the Colts actually won. And I think his last year he was with Seattle.
Okay, Armstrong, Coach, has got one. Armstrong, and he actually didn't go to this high school, but he played football for them because he went to the Franklin Military Academy.
Okay, who is that?
He played for Virginia Tech, and he's actually, I think, related to Morgan Moses. Ernest Williford.
Yes, Ernest Williford played wide receiver for Armstrong, and they couldn't get the ball to him. He was discovered when one of the Tech coaches watched him triple jump. Watched him triple jump, and said, "Wait a minute, this kid plays football," and the rest was history. Made a big catch in the end zone, and was drafted by Jacksonville.
Coach DeAnza, Richmond, Virginia. Jeremiah Parker. I've never heard of that school. That's LA. That kid must be from LA, man. This website must be off on that. That ain't no. Trying to see if we missed anybody, Coach. We got one Jefferson Huguenot with, I guess. Jefferson Archie Harris, 1987. Remember him, Coach?
His dad was a legendary basketball official, too, of the same name. He was offensive tackle, wasn't he?
I believe so, yes, sir. Armstrong's got one, 1968. Carlton Dabney, D tackle, 1968.
What was the legendary athlete in football and track, at least? Was it when Bird opened? Was it Branch? Was the last name Branch?
There was there was a Tyrone Branch.
Yeah,
he did not make the NFL, but I believe he went to, was it UVA or Virginia Tech? Virginia Tech.
I think it was Virginia Tech. I met him. That was the guy I was thinking about that I met a long time
Coach
ago.
Peabody's got one. Peabody, right. Ron Bolton. So that would go under Petersburg, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Yep.
He played 10 years, Ron Bolton, DB in the NFL.
Well, you get the segregated high schools. Anything can happen like that back in the day.
Mm-hmm. Collegiate, Coach.
Russell
this guy, I mean, Ray Easterling is under collegiate, Coach. Is that right?
I didn't know he was a Richmond native.
1972 to 1979.
That'd be it.
But Russell Wilson, Coach, why does Russell Wilson's name never come up with the 804 in Richmond?
I don't know.
Kids today, and I texted you this, kids today in high school are not aware that Russell Wilson is from Richmond. And I remember meeting him when he was in high school playing basketball.
They don't know he's black.
They do not know that he's from Richmond, Coach.
They don't know he's black. I mean, he was getting, of course, haters going to hate and stuff like that. When he was at the height of his powers, people were talking about that. His grandfather was the president of Norfolk State.
Yep.
And his dad played at Princeton. It was probably one of the first players of color in the Ivy League school.
Coach, Richmond, Virginia, Cornelius Johnson, Daryl Johnson. This is 1968. I don't even know. Was that Richmond County? I don't know. I've never heard of either one of those guys. Coach, we're forgetting about Matoka, Coach.
Oh, yeah. And that's bad because I was with Pat Manuel, sat next to Pat Manuel the other day. We did talk about
Matoka's
that.
got 2, Coach.
Just 2.
They're linebackers, and they both went to UVA.
Yeah, Ferrier and Threets.
Yep, Byron Thweet.
Yep. Great guy, by the way. What a good team. What a collection of coaches, too. Rinaldi chipping in, Gabe Hicks. Who Gabe Hicks, got a good hand and took Matoka to the state semifinals that year. Of course, he had 4 or 5 scholarship players. I couldn't believe there was 2 defensive backs on those teams that I told Coach Taylor, hey, we've got those guys. We got those guys between us and VMI. And I made sure he saw how you could live at Hampton after 11 o'clock at night. Pulled out all the stops. If they'd have asked me to drive my car, I think I'd have let them do it.
Yeah. Marshall Walker on this website's got 2. It says Robert Clark, wide receiver from 1987 to 1992. And Ray Perkins, 1987, defensive end, Dallas Cowboys. Is that accurate?
Yes. I don't know about the pro team, but yeah, I remember.
Okay, Benedictine, Coach. Benedictine's got 2. We didn't talk about Benedictine.
All right. I was expecting that. Of course, you got the Raiders.
Cleveland Farrell.
Yeah. And
then Patrick Estes, the tight end.
Yep. Patrick Estes is an excellent.
He went to UVA, right? Estes. Cleveland Farrell went to Clemson.
Yeah.
Still looking through this list here. John Marshall, we've already talked about.
Hey, John Marshall, can you pull up that list? Because I was in Florida when the former John Marshall player.
Well, Coach, here's one that was a coach in the CIAA and was the head coach at Virginia Union. Arrington Jones.
Yep.
Bobby Phillips in 95.
I'm sorry, I forgot Bobby because I coached Bobby in 91.
And then Corey Smith, he was the player that died on the boat, wasn't he, Coach?
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. I was in Florida. Our place in Florida is about 15 miles as crow flies from there.
Man, what a tragedy, man.
Bobby Phillips was a tremendous athlete, 7-foot high jumper, 5'11", 205, probably ran a 4.35. If he could caught the ball, he would have been probably a 5 to 10 year player in the NFL because he was a great third down back. Just never had learned how to catch the ball on a consistent basis. But he hooked up a couple of years with the Vikings. He went to Australia and played Australian rules football. Got recruited to do that. He was successful in that, and he came back and settled down in Richmond. He played on 2 or 3 of our indoor football teams on seasons. Still kind of, in a passing league was not his forte. He's so quick though. We actually got him to rush the passer a couple.
And we didn't say Deion Fox, Coach, for Meadowbrook.
Yeah, that's a shame.
Yeah.
Deion had hung with the Redskins for a while.
Yep, and I think he was even with the Dolphins too.
Yeah,
before that. I remember when I was playing at Bird that we were told. I guess somebody had told me that Deion Fox had bought uniforms for the Meadowbrook football team.
Yeah,
how cool was that, man? Yeah,
very cool, no question.
All right, Coach. I think we've gone through this. I think we've hit everywhere in the Richmond area. And if we haven't, let me check the comments, Coach. See if there's anybody.
A few comments. I've only seen a few comments.
Yeah, I haven't. There's no new comments, but I don't know if there's anybody we've missed. The private schools, we said St. Chris, Collegiate, and Benedictine. I mean, I'm pretty sure Life Christian will have 1 or 2 probably.
Oh yeah. Hey, it's funny. Tucker. I don't think Tucker has a player, but they have 2 national class college officials that came out of that football program. I mean, doing big games.
Freeman's got 1. You already said him, didn't you, Coach? Atlee's got 1.
And they listed Atlee as Zero Smith, right?
Yes, sir. Zarrell Smith.
Yeah.
Davis. Wood Annandale.
I forgot. Well, I guess I felt like Russell would come up, but I got to do 4 Russell Wilson games because I was moonlighting and doing Fork Union football.
Mm-hmm.
And then a guy I worked with a lot, Spanky McFarland, did all the collegiate games his last year. In fact, it became a joke. If you wanted to win the state championship, you get Spanky McFarland to do your games because Hopewell won 1. Goochland won 1 with him. Collegiate won 1. And I think Holland Springs won. Hopewell won a basketball too while he was there. So doing that.
Okay, well, coaches, Coach.
Yeah.
Who are the coaches that have coached pro football? I can only think of one head coach.
Yeah, Bobby Ross.
Bobby Ross.
Yeah.
And you said Darius Swinton, and you said Andre Curtis.
Andre Curtis.
Our assistants.
Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna fall short on some of these.
Who was the line coach? That was your mentor.
The line coach that was my mentor.
The guy that you said went on to coach in pro football. I don't know if he might not have coached O-line. Maybe he's running backs.
Mentor and
was it
well, Jerry Holmes was one of them.
Now you said he was a high school coach. Did he coach at Lee Davis? Well, you got a GM in the NFL.
Yeah,
Joe Douglas. Douglas. That's impressive.
I'm trying to think who you're. Oh, it was John Matsko.
John Matsko.
Yeah,
you got Joe Douglas as a GM. John Matsko from Richmond?
No, he recruited Richmond when he was for many years while he was at North Carolina, and he just because I was working in camps from year to year. I had an offer to be a graduate assistant there. I didn't get it. I just didn't want to move.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of wondered because there was 6 guys that ended up being NFL or Division I coaches that came out of that staff. So, and that's how that's how you move up.
Yeah, so, Puka had commented, Damian Woody and Ricky Hall.
Yeah.
Jim Tim commented, that's what makes you a great coach. Hey, Coach.
Oh, players, yeah.
Players.
And Coach Taylor used to say, you don't ride donkeys in a Kentucky Derby.
No, you don't. Man, he said a lot. Coach, we need to get Joe Taylor on here, Coach. Coach, I think that's your next mission is to get Joe Taylor on here. We've had 2 guys that are his mentees, but we have not had a college football Hall of Famer yet.
And did I tell a story about how he got the job on being on the selection committee for the national championship team?
No.
Yeah, when he was inducted to College Football Hall of Fame, I was surprised to find out that they don't let the individual inductees give an acceptance speech. The inductees get together and pick the guy that they want to do it, and they picked him. And then, so Coach is a really good speaker. He's a And if and the guy that was the director of the committee that picks it was sitting in the crowd and asked him to join. And I think I don't know how long the term is, but I think he just finished his second year. But he told me it's not as glamorous as he thought it was going to be, because flying to Dallas on Friday and leaving Dallas on Monday morning, especially when you're trying to hold down an AD's job at the college level, is not as glamorous as it sounds. But yeah, I don't know. From 91 on, everything I did in college football and every move I made after that kind of ran through Coach Taylor. So it was good. Hopefully he's in your family tree somewhere.
Maybe. I don't know. He's good to me. I know that. All right, Coach, let's make some predictions. Is there anybody that played high school football this year that you're going to make a prediction on, that you're going to say that guy's going to play pro football? Because I got one.
I'm probably going to like your suggestion.
I'm going to say the offensive lineman from Dinwiddie, who Robert Prunty is the only guy that offered him a scholarship. That kid will play pro football. I'm going to make that prediction right now.
Okay.
He's 6'6". He looks like Morgan Moses. He looks like the big ticket, and he got overlooked. He played for the best. One of the best, Lauren Johnson and Billy Mills won state championships this year, and one of the best programs in the state, Billy Mills. And, he had to go FCS, which is very, very, very interesting to me.
Yes.
But, hey.
Sometimes it works out like that. I mean, and we talked about Barty Smith. He went, and I don't think it was ever a doubt that he was going to go to the next level from there. But again, it was a different landscape. Richmond Richmond was in the top 20 a couple of times.
Any players, Coach, that you can think of?
I always look at the offensive line. But that's also the hardest one to evaluate. I've always said, especially when you change the level. It's hard to get a big mountain kid out and figure out what he's going to do at the next level when he's playing against a different type of athlete. I will tell you, I like what I see about the kid. He's a offensive tackle, defensive end. He was second team All Metro as a sophomore at Matoka.
Oh, he's a big kid, yeah.
Yeah, and I got to talk to his dad a little bit. You rarely learn anything about a kid from your dad that's accurate information, but I just feel like, and then talking to a couple of the Matoka coaches, it's obviously that they're looking at him. I think he's like most kids. He likes the defensive side of the ball more than the offensive side of the ball, but he's got really, really long arms and things like that. It's funny. Most of the time I come out of a season, and even when I was watching a little bit more high school basketball, I would see kids that played football maybe the last couple of years, but they were basketball players their entire time. And you wonder what would have happened if they'd have played just football.
Well, I'm going to make a prediction. Highland Springs is going to break that record, because they got a DB for Clemson who,
Exactly.
he probably going to play.
Yeah, we're probably forgetting. And by the way, I actually think one of their guys, their old center that played at Madison is on the practice squad at Tampa.
It's Green. That's Malcolm Green's brother. Yeah, Green, one of the Greens. There's a Green now, and Lauren Johnson said that their sister is the best athlete. I don't know. I think she might be track.
Mm-hmm.
She's a great athlete. Super Bowl. Coach, we've been on here almost an hour and 30 minutes. The Super Bowl. Give me your thoughts on the Super Bowl.
It's funny. Personal attachments. There's not 10 people that I find more interesting in the world than Joe Cullen, who was highlighted in the Times-Dispatch. I was with his mentor, Jim Reed, the other night too, and the article was in the paper on the following day. But I remember Joe vividly from years and conversations we had, at Richmond, but also at the All Metro banquet, stuff like that. He's a guy that only has a regular voice like 1 month out of a year. He's either recovered from losing his voice or losing his voice. And he's very demonstrative. And he got on a fast track really quickly. And like, for instance, he got put on the LSU staff when the guy that failed before. I got to
Les Miles, before Les Miles,
and before Saban.
That was the guy. He's defensive coordinator in XFL.
Yeah, Indiana. Anyway, Joe's been in some tricky situations with his life, so it's good to see he's landing. And evidently, he's well thought of, because
yes,
if Andy Reid and what's his face, the defensive coordinator, who's been a head coach too, if they're calling you up in a conference call, it's usually not to tell you how bad a coach you are.
He was DC with the Jags last year, I believe, for Urban Meyer,
which was a dumpster fire.
I'm pulling for the Eagles, Coach, because we got 2 kids from Richmond. And I don't know, do they still do it where the high school gets the gold football?
I'm not aware of it. If they do, I will tell you this, that was a factor, but I just believe that if the Eagles, the stat I would look at is if the Eagles run the ball more than 30 times, they'll probably win this game, because teams have a tendency to think they have to outscore Kansas City, and it's not like Kansas City doesn't have a real solid run defense. Their stats aren't bad because teams don't run the ball against them. They abandon the run before they run 30. So if they're establishing, those type of offenses now, Troy, if they're establishing themselves, at the line of scrimmage, it opens a lot of doors. That. Just like we've seen high school coaches do all the time in the semifinals and the finals, you turn loose your players. You got plenty of time to mend if you get any injuries. You turn them loose, and I think that's what's going to happen. But hard to count against that Kansas City offense, because everybody looks at what Mahomes does and how he delivers the balls and things like that. But Andy Reid is stringing together some concepts. It's not like he's inventing stuff, but he's putting shades of different things together, and it usually shows up in what he does with his wide receivers, unconventional things he does with his wide receivers, jet sweeps and stuff like that. But everybody talks about, and it's Kelsey. Kelsey's running patterns that if you ran them in high school, you'd go, well, that guy's not going to get open. But as well as these guys know what the other guys are doing, and vice versa, and you just use that against him. And you watch how many passes he catches when he's just drifting. All he did was just sell a run block and then drifts into an open spot, And I'm still a little bit of an air raid guy, so I like when people run into areas and throw things. And there's one day we'll do a thing. It'll be a little technical. Why? I've never seen anybody run a mesh concept in Central Virginia.
Well, I mean, Billy Mills, he ran a lot of mesh. When he first got around here, the first 10 years, like he really did run drop back, X and Y cross.
Right.
And I think I don't know if the base pattern is that the Z runs a post or a corner, but other guys are in the flats with the 2 meshing. And he ran it. He really did. And I think Claude Hadaway and Mike Scott at Petersburg, they were all Tony Franklin guys.
Yeah.
But I guess it's just a drop back progression. And there's probably not that many quarterbacks in the world that can do it, to drop back and go through a progression.
Yeah, and you don't see them throwing the ball behind linebackers that are blitzing, so early in the pattern, and you don't see quarterbacks being able to extend plays where they throw the ball on the third option
Mm-hmm.
when the guy's clearing the other side.
Yeah.
So anyway, leave it to us. We'll talk about X and O's with Doe.
Yeah, but Coach, I got Billy Kosh is coming on, and Billy Kosh likes to throw it around a lot. And I'm pretty sure you know his dad, Chris Kosh. So he's coming on. Yeah. And so that'll be good. And Coach, is there anything else you want to say to the clinic? Part 3, part 3 is going to be throwing the ball? You going to go on the board?
If we get more interaction, I'll do anything. Because it's all about learning. It's all about, keeping it.
I mean, sharp. Coach, we got a lot of comments right here, man. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I mean, Tim was a lot of them now.
Yeah.
But I mean, we probably got 50 comments here. Some of them I didn't show, because I wasn't paying attention. Ricky Hall, Damian Woody, Tim. That was great. Great, Coach. Kickers are Tim said there are different kickers are a different kind of people.
Oh yeah.
Okay. And that kickers are soft. They hate tackling. Then you got bald Coach Case at Ken Oxendine. Here you go. There's a name.
Orlandis Branch.
It's a Puka.
But is that the Verona kid?
Oh, that is Andre Branch's dad's name. And he told me that yes, he did, and his dad played for the Cowboys, but I'm not in U of R. Alan Michael Cash was my guy, under recruited. It was doubted, but always produced.
Yeah. Oh, Puka's is a touchstone. Youth football and
high school. He's been a part of all 5 of those state championships.
Yeah, he might be the only little league coach as he came up through the ranks that I heard about just because of his ability to recognize and develop talent.
Yeah, I mean, Puka and also, CJ Scott at Life Christian and the great job that he did with the Central Virginia Hurricanes.
I don't those teams. It's just a personal thing. I'm sorry.
Now Coach Scott's gone to Huguenot, and he's the head coach. But I'm trying to think of anyone else.
But I mean, I mean, one of my ex-players, Chris Woody, is now they've expanded the Metro.
Yeah, I know Chris Woody. He works for Game Breaker.
Yeah.
Yep. He had contacted me about sponsoring, but we got Rat Coach. Coach, we got a sponsor since you've been on last. Rat Coach is basically an assistant coach that is a computer program that basically it does the work for you. It tells the kids when to change the weights, when to lift, when to stop, when to switch. And it's all projected or either put on an LCD projector. They're out of Kansas. And, I contacted them because I found out about it from one of our guys that came on, Dan Mullins. And it's regimented. It's not just, hey, go in there and, 4 sets of 10 a bench. I mean, it's very regimented and it's, technology.
So it's an off-season workout?
Huh?
It's an off-season workout?
It's what it is it's a weight program. It's a weight program and it beeps. You put it on the screen. It tells them what to do. It puts in colors. And then the thing rotates, Coach. And then it's on the screen and it shows them what they're lifting. Boom, change the weight. Boop.
Yeah.
Lift. Boop. It's like, it's regimented, Coach. It's like, it's right on a timer, man. Everything. Yeah. And you can see it.
I feel like Jackie Gleason and Smokey and the Bandit. Junior, what's this world coming to?
I don't know, Coach. I'm the guy. I was in. I'm Captain Chaos, man. I'm Dom DeLuise in Cannonball Run.
You ain't telling me anything I don't know.
Yeah, I'm Captain Chaos. I always liked the doctor, Coach, with the needle. Remember him? That guy was the best, man.
Yeah. I listen. The thing that I want to tell your people, and I'm trying to understand. Oh yeah, I see the rack coach logo. It's a cool logo too. I want to tell you guys that with the clinic, with the championship clinic and stuff like that, what I'm interested in is preserving this game.
Mm-hmm.
And what lasts is tapping emotions that make people want to support you, like you, put up with you, however you want to do it. But I'm a firm believer in that if you love it, you need to serve it. And we're at a juncture, and Puka's name's come up again. I'm hoping to get in front of youth coaches and tell them, especially at the young level, that we need to. That it needs to be a report card, not a participation reward. It needs to be. This is what this is the improvements you made. That should be something that not only you trying to strive for with your players, that you celebrate with. The wins will come. If you run the numbers, the wins will come eventually. That one of the great things about football, it's amazing. When I left the JV football market and the program fell apart behind me, it wasn't because these guys weren't as smart as I was, or knew more football than I was. I just didn't allow for mistakes. I took care of details. If you don't beat yourself, if you line up in the right place, I remember going to visit Billy Mills his first year. First guy I ever talked to on the internet. First coach I even talked to on the internet. And I remember him talking about standing 165-pound guards up against the guys on his schedule. And his quarterback, who went on to do great things, was calling coverage and all that kind of stuff. But the fact that you're making an effort and you're in the right place at the right time, this is a great game. This is a great game for that reason. I mean, how many times can you break down stuff and see how plays could have gone wrong or right in a game? And it's all about details. It's the greatest team game ever invented, and nobody will prove otherwise to me.
And tomorrow is a holiday, Coach, for us. For football guys.
Pardon me, I don't want to be blasphemous. It's a holy day at my house. It's a holy day, and you know what I do? You know what I'm doing to save myself? I'm actually I'm going to watch the game with civilians and actually feed them while they're with me. Now, will I end up stomping out of the room? Perhaps.
So what entails a civilian? Is that someone who's a non-coach?
Yeah. I mean,
someone that doesn't know football is a civilian.
Well, I don't mind, because nobody's ever prosecuted me for not knowing ballet. But I've been to 2 or 3 ballets. You may find it interesting. I love musical theater. I am a season ticket holder to Broadway on Richmond. Yes, I am.
That's good, Coach.
You buy that ticket for your wife, and she tells you, forget about my birthday and Valentine's Day, what happens to be in the same month.
You're smart.
Here.
How long have you been married, Coach? You might have to do a show on how to stay married as a coach.
Well, I've been happily married. Let me add it up now. Happily married for 38 years to 2 different women.
Yeah.
21 first time, 17 the second. And the first one was very pro sports and got even more pro sports when she moved on. She used to hate, the me having the radio on all over the house, listening to games while I'm doing stuff. And then I went to pick up my daughter when we both in a dating period, and she got the Spiders game on, And it was, you can joke about stuff because when you have nice lives and the kids have been successful and you move on and everybody's happy being around each other and stuff like that, it's good. And I married a serious athlete the second time. I mean, and she retired as her last 7 years in school. She was the AD at Douglas Freeman. She broke up the boys club there. That wasn't her intention, but you don't get any more boys club than the guys who are ADs at Freeman. I love all of them, but it's a different style. But she was Olympic class swimmer, and her coach was her aunt, and her aunt was a member of the 52 Helsinki Olympic Games. And but she's influenced me a lot about athletes and priorities and all that kind of stuff. We could literally get over recruiting athletes. She and I could have got a divorce. I'm serious. Could have got a divorce because you don't talk to an ex-college recruiter whose only qualification was, I need some special team stuff. And I liked special teams, and I liked taking kids that weren't starters and making good players out of them. I like that part. But let's face it, I was there because I could go in.
You can sell.
I could sell. And I have not told this on a public forum before, but I have told this story several times. When I chose not to live at Hampton University, I kept my kids and the family in Mechanicsville. I had a house they gave me, and I shared it with two assistant coaches. And they always wondered how I could recruit these kids that, as far as they could tell, were nothing like me.
Mm-hmm.
And then one day, I just happened to mention that my brothers and I were the first generation on both sides of my family to be born in homes with indoor plumbing. And they nudged each other and said, now we know. Now we know. They thought I was just making that stuff up.
Yeah.
If you go to enough homes, we're talking almost 20 years ago. You go up in enough homes back in the day, you're gonna see some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna see some stuff I saw as a kid, and I thought of it as not pointing out how rough they had to live in, but that they were appreciating you coming over to talk about their kids' future. And then to show you that appreciation, they was cooking food. You couldn't see across the room. Troy's stuff is smoking and, grease is flying and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's food I didn't eat it when I was hungry, but I grew up eating it. And it's not like
we didn't even throw our grease away. We kept oil on that thing every day because we was going to use it tomorrow. Everything was fried.
Yeah. Yeah. And,
French fries, fried chicken, fried fish, everything.
No, keep
the oil right on there.
But that's that's the thing. And to be honest with you, I'm where I'm supposed to be. But there was a couple of turns where I really could have gotten on a ride.
Mm-hmm.
I got an opportunity just going in and having a conversation. Neighboring school in college, played baseball, didn't have a football team. Joe Morrison was the head coach at Chattanooga at the time. He had turned them around. We talked about, hey, do you want, because I was playing baseball, I wasn't home very much in the summer and stuff. It was time to go home, try to find a job. Jobs were tight. I'm sure my parents would have supported me, but he was, he got the job in New Mexico, and that sounded like a big deal. But I could have easily become a graduate assistant and gone with him there. My grandparents lived in southeastern New Mexico, but I came home. But you get to coach at your old high school, and you come back, and it's the same coaching staff you live, and they have to make up a way to pay you.
Yeah, that's the same way Tom McDaniel said. Josh McDaniel's dad, who came on, he said he went right back to his old high school, Orville High School, and he was a high school coach for 40 years in Ohio. And both of his sons got D1 GA jobs. Josh McDaniels was at Michigan State with Saban, and then Ben McDaniels, who's a quarterback coach of the Texans, he went to work for Glenn Mason at Minnesota, and he would have never had those opportunities. Those kids wouldn't have had those opportunities if it wasn't for their dad. And their dad coached Maurice Claret in high school. I did not know that.
Wow.
And
all right, look.
Yeah, hour and 45 minutes, Coach. You said 8 to 9, and it's 9:54.
I know, but look, like I said, and those of you who've been with us the whole time, I weep for you. You really should have more stuff to do than this. But no, this is a nice thing. It's a nice outlet, and I don't want to outrun my welcome, but I do have something I think I'll share with you. I am a published author, by the way. Yes, I am. Richmond Parent Magazine, the coach your kids deserve.
Wow.
And it's more youth coaching.
Just so you want to do part 3 of Gary Criswell Chronicles, talking to the youth coaches of America.
Let's see how much time goes by. And I'll tell you the other thing is I'm gonna tune in to some of what the other guys are doing too. That'll inspire us a little, inspire me a little bit. But I'm going to make a issue, and even if I have to do it with just social media and this type of stuff, I'm going to make an issue about, well, it's already an issue, that we need to understand that we need to develop skill at the early levels. I'm not saying don't keep score. Thank God my 2 daughters were competitors, especially the youngest one. And when we were doing T-ball and you don't keep score, Kelsey used to come to me all the time and say, Daddy, I know we won. And I said, yeah, we did. We did. But I just think that we need to do it. And the good news is the big boys like you and like the guys that we deal with, Gary and I deal with all the time, the high school program builders in this area, they have nothing to lose. They have everything to gain from that, from a good ground base of happening. Because let me tell you what's happening right now is if you start eliminating part of your pool of players, it's not going to erode at every program at an equal rate, right? If everybody's losing 80%.
That's why I left Meadowbrook, is because that we didn't have a feeder program. I mean, I don't think one of the CQL teams my last year I went out and not one of them had a senior team. Right. And if you don't have a feeder program, I mean, Beulah didn't have a senior team. Bensley didn't have an association. Fallen Creek didn't have an association. Hopkins did. Hopkins still has a very strong program.
That's good.
But I mean, if you don't have a feeder program, man, good luck.
If you're taking away the benefits. And let's face it, youth ball is won by your best players. The game that I know is won by the guy that's got the best 22 stars. Hell, I'll go further than that. That everybody that steps on their field is better than the other guy's 35 players.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you're not coaching in a way where you're not making putting those role players in positions to win games, then you're probably getting out coached some.
Yeah, we want to develop players and we want to get them ready for the next level, and we want to keep them in the game. We don't want to run any players off.
Yeah, and right now, what's going to happen is the programs that are weak will get weaker. Because let's face it, there are going to be people that, for lack of a better way to describe it, their kids have made it. And they're going to go and make sure junior is living in the right zone. Because I may be Pollyannish and I may be stupid, but I don't think there's any way there's as much cheating going on as people say it is in any program anywhere. And if it is, that's the school board's problem. Because to me, this is not rocket science. Figuring out who lives in your zone. Right?
Yeah, it's up to the counties. You know, it's really, that's what Virginia High School League does. It's just like with other situations that have occurred in this country, people pass the buck. So if it's the people at the top, they pass it down to the lower people. Y'all handle it, you know? So.
Or they kick the can right down the road. See the U.S. government.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, listen, it's always good to be around somebody that lives, breathes football like you do.
I do.
You need to relax some, man. I don't know how to break this to you. Just
relax. Coach. It ain't gonna happen, Coach.
Let me tell you something. You're really good at this format.
I mean, why is that? Is it just I love it?
Yeah. I learned, and you're not afraid to laugh at yourself.
Yeah.
And you're not afraid to be laughed at.
Yeah. I laugh at myself every morning. I look in the mirror.
I learned
that's what's so good about John Madden. John Madden was so good because he laughed at himself and he was funny. He made the game fun.
I used to keep it on local radio all the time because there's so many local programs and I was part of them with Hess and the stuff we were doing and some of the other projects I got to do. And so I listened to local radio all the time, and occasionally they'd be carrying stuff that I didn't have a lot of interest in. And I've smoked cigars and stuff like that, but I used to listen to the cigar guy. And the cigar guy one year had a draft on the day of the NFL draft, and the guys would call in and draft the cigar that they, the number one pick and all this kind of stuff, and they determined something with a national contract. But it was just enthusiasm. And I'd spin it around the dial. My father taught me a long time ago that politics on the radio drive you crazy. But I listened to Limbaugh a little bit. And I caught Limbaugh at the right time when he was talking about his success and stuff like that. And, he only opened up topics of discussions on Fridays. And the rest of the time he talked about what he wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
And he said, if you talk about stuff you want to talk about, you're going to put yourself in the best position to do that. And I think that carries over to coaching a little bit. If you only talk about the stuff you can do well, then you should be doing that.
Yeah, I'm not going to be talking to anybody from MIT about brain surgery or nuclear physics or building a rocket ship or brain surgery anytime soon.
But guess what? You love coaches.
I do. I love coaches. I love football players. I love the game.
If things run, you might need them. Don't ever discount these guys, especially these medical guys, because you might need them. I know exactly what it is. But no, Troy, that's the difference. That's the difference. You have a passion to do this. I'm talking to a crazy person. I've been called crazy before. And, you talk about being married, not being married, things like that. I mean, marriage helps me balance stuff out because, football can become an obsession. A lot of things can become an obsession. Your business can become an obsession. Groucho once said, "I like my cigar, but I take it out once in a while." Of course, he was talking to a couple that had 4 children already. And he said that on national television in the 50s.
That's good advice.
Yeah,
That's good advice.
But yeah, I like my cigar, but I take it out once in a while. So it's just look up that line. It's pretty funny. But I just we have a great game, and people need to understand that what you do, what Little League guys do, and don't get me wrong, this is no reaction to anything that's happened with my grandson. My grandson would have played the same amount if I was coaching. It'd have been a little bit different deal and things like that. And I know that they had an eye that he'd be back next year.
Mm-hmm.
And he had guys that and he had a coach and a parent would tell us, "Hey, Henry's where so-and-so was last year," and stuff like that. And obviously they develop and stuff. But what if Henry doesn't? Because it was a lot of hustle. He's got he's the oldest of 3 kids, and he's not even 6 years old yet. And they're hustling around, and sometimes I had to help out to make sure he got there and stuff. And I'll tell you no secret, I couldn't be a youth league coach to save my life, because high level athletes, I'm spoiled. I'm absolutely spoiled. I can't imagine doing that.
Yeah.
And that's what I told these guys. But I said, but your job is much more important than anything I've ever done in my job, because you got to look at it for what it was. In the scope of thing, you can reach a lot of people, and don't get me wrong, but you're getting kids that are doing well in something, hopefully a bunch of stuff, and you're getting them in a place where they're going to do a little bit better. I'm talking about whether they're actually going to do something in the sport, do something in a coaching situation, do something with the team dynamic. How many pain in the asses in the world have you seen, and you thought to yourself, this guy didn't play a lot of team sports when he was young? I had a boss like that in minor league sports. And by the way, they don't like it when you bring that up. You actually tell them that. Just got to let you know that. But no, hey, listen, it's fun. You get in a conversation with me, it could get out of hand. But no, I thank for what you're doing, and if you picked up one thing that works for you,
mm-hmm.
that's what I believe you should do. I got a good line for you on the way out, because I know you don't mind working officials, right?
No, not at all.
All right, tell me if I've said it. Tell you, I was preparing to do the Stonebridge Highland Springs game.
The worst officiated game I've ever seen.
All right. Well, I don't know about that, but I wanted to get.
I saw numerous times that people were in motion and people were moving and nothing was ever called.
And it's funny you should mention that, because guess what? So I got a hold of a guy that's an internet X&O guy, and I said, I need a guy that I can get on, and just me and him, just one-on-one, would have a conversation. So we just FaceTime. So I get the guy, and he's from Louisiana. I can't even think of his name right now. I can look it up. But I got basketball set to come on every hour and 15 minutes, whether I want it to or not. anyway, I talked to him about just this and that and all that. And then I asked him about what's different from stuff you've done before. He said, well, I never really had to go to officials before a game and work something out with them. And of course, instantly I knew you're talking about how far off the ball the guards are and how far off the ball the tackles are. Those damn look like a flight of geese coming at you if they could do it. And I had heard something similar to this, but the guy put a football face on it, and he goes to the officials and he said, "Look, we're a big misdirection team. This is my vocation. What you do is your avocation. What's legal? Let's run the game like everything's fine."
Man.
In other words, just say that stuff. And I had when I umpired, and the first time I ever umpired for a guy was a legendary pain in the butt. He was ODBU baseball coach. He ended up in the Yankees Association. And I had a veteran umpire with me, and he realized that first time I'd ever umpired for this guy. And he said, just remember, this is our avocation. That's his vocation. That's his job. If he's a little bit more excited about it than you are, then just try to remember that.
Yeah.
That doesn't explain it, but, every once in a while.
When you're a baseball umpire, you expect that because this is a part of the game. The banter between the coaches and the umpires is part of the game. And kicking coaches out of baseball games is a part of the game, but it's really not a part of football. Kicking football coaches out of games is not something that you regularly see unless it's 2 15-yard penalties when sportsman likes. But, hey, we're all human, and I love referees. I love the job they do, and I especially love the Central Virginia referees. All right, they are the best.
Oh, yeah. But let me tell you something. Yeah. Let me tell you something, though. That's another crisis, and it's folded in.
Yes, it is.
The misbehavior that's happening at the youth level. And again, young people are.
We need to get the referees on here. Recruit some. They should be recruiting former players, guys that are just getting out of high school.
Let me tell you something. As long as they can referee, I don't have any problem with the way the NFL runs their program. I don't care who they get to referee as long as they can administer the game. But they got more money than Davy Crockett, to quote Forrest Gump. These guys should be full-time employees, and I think they're starting to do it, but they haven't done it all the way that I know of. The NFL referees need to be full-time employees, need to be in shape, and they need to be working to trickle down to get a steady flow of just expertise.
Why is there only a 53-man roster? Why are we watching an NFC championship where there's not a quarterback? Yeah. That's what they don't want to play 55 guys. Man, I'm getting ready to get going here. The commissioner makes $60 million a year, and they can't afford to pay another quarterback so we can actually see a good football game.
Is the Players Association behind that though? So the guys that are in the league that get represented, it keeps their standard up, because obviously it's a supply and demand type thing. But why
would they not want to have more players in the NFL getting paid? Because there's more players, there's more probability of staying, isn't it? But you've coached, pro football, and where guys are getting paid. You've had to deal with that salary.
Yeah, you got a steady. You got to get a steady stream of. I'm not arguing against your point, by the way. I think you're spot on. I think there's a reason like most times, anytime you have collective bargaining, anytime you don't get me wrong, unions, they shouldn't call them unions, but unions at the pro sports level have a function, have a logical function. Unfortunately, there's some sidebar issues. All right, listen, I gotta call it a night. I've got a 13-year-old dog, who's the craziest bitch in the world, and I got a 15-year-old baby boy dog that doesn't know where he's supposed to pee, and where I have to remind him to pee every hour and a half. So he's looking at me right now.
You got your hands full.
No,
I see you, man.
Yeah.
Have a good Super Bowl Sunday.
Hey, happy Super Bowl Sunday. Had a good time.